Hi, good morning. My name is Karthik Godavarthi, and I'm the faculty of anthropology at Vajiram and Ravi. I welcome you all to this webinar on anthropology as an optional subject. I'll try my best to answer all the frequently asked questions that many students normally have before and after choosing a particular optional. I have been involved in mentoring and coaching aspirants for civil services in anthropology for almost 30 years now, and have a general idea as to the apprehensions and the questions that students normally have when they choose a discipline which is almost unrelated to most of the subjects in which the aspirants normally graduate in Indian universities. Let me try to share a small presentation which may probably help you navigate through this webinar easily. I hope everyone can see the screen. I'm not sure, not getting any feedback. Yes. So I have organized this webinar into different sections. Let me first give you a bird's eye view about what anthropology is all about, which I shall do in a nutshell. And I will take you through the syllabus, whatever has been prescribed by UPSC for the purpose of this examination. And then I will move on to explaining to you about how anthropology is as an optional subject. How has it been treating the aspirants, and what are the expectations that you can have as far as this subject is concerned? And what is it that the optional or anthropology as an optional expects from you? And we will also look at some of the areas where anthropology heavily interfaces and overlaps with your general studies. And I will also, at the end of this webinar, explain to you the methodology that we adopt both in and outside the classroom to help you and usher you through a successful attempt in this examination. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you can use the chat, and I will go through them and answer your questions as far as I can. Let's first look at what anthropology is. Anthropology, in very simple terms, can be defined as a science of humanity. In fact, the word anthropology is derived from two Greek words, anthropos, which means human, and logos or logia, which means science, reasoning, or a study. So, if we use these two words and try to etymologically define anthropology, it translates to the science of humanity or the study of humanity. But it's not just any other kind of a study. In fact, almost all of us every single day will be studying one human or the other. But this is a scientific discipline, a discipline that has emerged in the academia somewhere in the 19th century to systematically explain mankind. And there's virtually nothing under the sky that we do not touch upon when it comes to the human species. And that is one of the reasons why anthropology is also known as one of the most comprehensive of all the disciplines that also study man. Anthropology is not the only discipline, isn't it? We have a whole gamut of social sciences like sociology, political science, even economics, geography, human geography more specifically. We have life sciences like medical sciences, human anatomy, physiology. We have earth sciences, including geography. You have ecology or human ecology. Everyone is looking at one or the other aspect of the human being. But what makes us special, as far as anthropology is concerned, we do not try to compartmentalize the different aspects of the human behavior. We look at the human behavior in its totality. And this is what is normally known in philosophy as holism. And this holistic approach to understanding the human nature is what anthropology is. Take, for example, Encyclopedia Britannica defines anthropology as a discipline devoted to a discourse on human nature. And the word human nature is itself a very comprehensive a concept and a phenomenon. The human being is not just a bag of bones and blood, isn't it? We are not just animals, even though we are. We are genetically very similar to most of the other organisms, and we are more than 98% similar at the genetic level, at the DNA level, with our closest relatives, the chimpanzees and the other great apes. But we have not remained as just an animal living on the earth and living off the earth. We have evolved our complex behavior, which is normally referred to as culture. And this behavior is again attributed to our biological capacities and capabilities. Our brain, for example, or for that reason, our ability to have what are called as the precision and the power grip, our ability to form social organizations and groupings, division of labor, language and communication, and also organizing our basic needs into social institutions like marriage, family, kinship, food through economy, and some kind of a social control through political systems. So, even though we share some of these needs with the other species, we have evolved and developed a sophisticated behavior that is called as culture and organized ourselves into societies. And these features is what defines humanity. Man is a biological term and it is gender neutral in anthropological discourse, whereas a human is a cultural phenomenon, a behavioral phenomenon. And since biology, culture, and society interact with each other, they also react and respond to each other. Any study of the human being has to be holistic in nature, it has to be interdisciplinary in nature. And any kind of a discussion on the human behavior has to be panoramic, covering the 360-degree perspective of human behavior. So that's what makes anthropology a unique discipline amongst life sciences, amongst social sciences, and even amongst humanities. Well, I'll be discussing more about this in my regular class anyway, but that's a kind of a bird's eye view about what anthropology is. And anthropology is also a blend of all the social sciences and life sciences that even remotely touch the human species. In fact, we have a parallel to every other science in our subject. We have social anthropology, which overlaps with sociology to some extent. We have political anthropology, which overlaps with political science, economic anthropology, which overlaps obviously with economics. We have ecological anthropology, which overlaps with ecology. And we also have something like epidemiology and medical anthropology that overlaps with medical sciences. So there's virtually nothing that we don't study in anthropology. We touch upon all the aspects of human behavior, the human nature, the human problems, and the ways in which the human beings try to negotiate with their environment, and also they try to negotiate with each other. And this is the reason why anthropology is considered to be one of the most comprehensive of all the disciplines that study mankind. And there are primarily or fundamentally three questions that we try to answer. Who is man? That means we try to define the humanity and human being and the human species. Where did he come from? That means we try to search the origins of the human being, not only biologically, but also the cultural and behavioral origins. And why does he behave the way he does? What makes us unique? Why is it that we react and respond to the stimuli unlike any other species of life on Earth? So, these three fundamental questions that we raise and try to answer about mankind or humanity is the crux of anthropological theory and the crux of anthropological research. Who is man? Where did he come from? And why does he behave the way he does? So that, in essence, in a nutshell, is what anthropology is. Very simply, it's a science of humanity. And at the same time, defining us as the science of humanity subsumes that we are looking at every other aspect that has already been studied by other social sciences and look at it from anthropological lens and use our own unique research methods and methodology to reinterpret the stories that have already been written about ourselves, mankind. And what we study in anthropology during the course of our discussions over 5.5 months is ourselves. We are going to look at ourselves. We are going to look at our own origins. We are going to look at our families, our marital systems, our political systems, our economic behaviors, how we react and respond to pandemics and epidemics, how we respond and react to the environmental change and the climate change and whatnot. So, virtually everything that remotely touches us and that we touch as human species is an integral part of anthropological subject and its research. It's also known as the four field method, is because we touch upon the four broad areas. One is called the socio-cultural anthropology, the second is called as physical anthropology. The third is linguistic anthropology. And the fourth is archaeological anthropology or archaeology. Sociocultural anthropology looks at the social and cultural aspects of man. Physical anthropology looks at the physical dimension, our biological and biocultural aspects. Linguistic anthropology, as the name is self-explanatory, looks at this sophisticated behavior called language and communication, and we try to see how we deploy the speech and language, and how we try to at the same time react and respond to each other. And finally, archaeology, which looks at the extinct cultures, and those extinct cultures hold the secrets of our own origins, and they tell us a lot about how our ancestors have lived and negotiated with the world as they were evolving. So this is in a nutshell what anthropology is. And as far as your particular syllabus is concerned, we can broadly divide. Every other optional is organized in the same way. There are two papers. Each of the papers, I'm sure you know, carries 250 marks. So total 500 marks are allocated for your optional. And the paper one, we can, for our academic convenience, classify into socio-cultural anthropology and physical anthropology. I will take you through some of the topics briefly in a short while. And paper two, we can call it Indian anthropology. While paper one will be focusing on the concept and theory in anthropology, which essentially is laying the foundations for you for the various branches of research in anthropology. Paper two is more specific to India. We'll be focusing mostly on Indian society, Indian culture, and the various other theoretical as well as applied aspects, as you shall see shortly. Well, the syllabus, as you look at it, as it is published in the Gazette, is not very well organized. In fact, that's not the way in which one should study anthropology. And there are many redundancies, there are duplications, and we have our own methodology, the methodology that we have developed over almost 30 years now. And this pedagogy or the methodology we use is the one that has been time tested and the best way to study anthropology, so that you can develop a kind of a control over the discipline in a short period of time. And this is the socio-cultural anthropology, the first part of paper one. Well, we will be starting out with the meaning and scope and the branches of anthropology, a topic that will introduce you to anthropological concepts in detail. And you may call it an advantage, that not very many universities offer anthropology at a undergraduate or graduate level, and most of the I'm sorry, most of the aspirants who come and take anthropology have had absolutely no prior understanding of the discipline. So this is the chapter that introduces you to everything to do with anthropology, its methods, when did it evolve, and what are the various branches and the kind of questions that anthropologists seek answers to in their search for understanding the humanity. And then we will move on to looking at the basic concepts in society and culture. I consider this to be extremely important for your understanding of your general studies also, because much of general studies has social sciences concepts, and social sciences concepts in a sense that, you know, there are certain terms that are often used in general studies, like while you're studying, let us say, the social and cultural aspects of India or any other nation, you will be encountering a number of terms which are having very typical and specific meanings and definitions, like society, culture, association, community, social group. What do we mean by an institution? So, this is the chapter that's going to lay the foundations for your social and cultural understanding of the world as such, and specifically more so with anthropology. And this is where you will be learning, I should say, the alphabets of social sciences, and a very important topic without whose understanding, you know, we cannot proceed in our syllabus. And then, of course, we have a comparative study of social institutions. This is where we are going to look at our marriages, family systems, kinship. You know, kinship is to do with relationships, and all of us have relatives. We all have two types of relatives: those who are related to us by birth or parentage, and those who are related to us by marriage. And the societies across the world have different systems of marriage, family, and kinship. And sociocultural anthropology is essentially a comparative study. So we don't pick up a society or a culture. We pick up almost examples from a majority of the societies and cultures in the world, and look at the way how people in different continents and different cultures are trying to address the same problem in their own unique way. And this is a very interesting area of study. In fact, this is where you will be exposed to the glorious diversity of humanity as such, the way in which the different cultures of the world, however traditional and primitive or old they may be, or however so called modern and sophisticated they may be, are all speaking the same language, are all saying the same thing, but doing it in their own way. And we will also be looking at the various economic arrangements. Economic anthropology is a comparative study of production, distribution, and consumption. And we will be looking at how the different cultures of the world are trying to organize their basic needs, and how they try to negotiate with their nature and environment and whatnot, and how they try to exact resources from the nature around them. And here we will be looking at indigenous societies across the world. We will also be looking at the impact that climate change and globalization is having on indigenous economies, like the tribal societies of the world, the Indian farming sector, and whatnot. And at the same time, we will look at the comparative study of political institutions, how power, authority, and legitimacy are defined and interpreted by different cultures, and how is leadership recognized and accepted. What are the functions of the various political organizations in different cultures of the world is what is an integral part of political anthropology. And of course, religion and magic. And we are not going to look at a religion, but we are going to look at religion as one of those social institutions of man. Why did we create it? What are the functions of religion in our life? and what is it that the humanity is trying to achieve by engaging itself with the so-called supernatural powers and supernatural forces. And this constitutes the crux of your socio-cultural anthropology, and the comparative study of social institutions is by far the most important aspect in your paper one. And of course, you have a very small topic in linguistic anthropology. We just have to look at the various hypotheses that have been given for origin of language and speech. And we will also try to explore what could have been those first words our ancestors must have spoken. And we don't just communicate verbally, we don't just communicate through scripts, but we also communicate enormously through non-verbal means. And non-verbal communication is sending and receiving information through wordless messages and gestures, postures, clothing, and even the way in which we organize our architecture, the furniture, everything is a message that we are sending across. And this is another interesting area we will be looking at as a part of your syllabus. It's a small chapter you have, you don't have much in this particular topic. And then, of course, we will be looking at the various concepts. The concept of culture has evolved for almost 200 years in anthropology. So we will be looking at the different approaches to the concept of culture, as it has evolved in the theory of anthropology. Starting with 19th century, you have about 7 or 8 theories that we will be looking at. And then we will also look at the methods and the tools for research, because anthropologists are always on the field. You can't imagine anthropology without field work. The concept of armchair anthropology doesn't exist. We believe in going to the field, choosing our culture, living with the people, and following the various other research protocols in order to understand mankind. And one of the very important aspects of anthropology is we are not trying to look at and understand cultures from our perspective. The fundamental difference between anthropology and other social sciences is that we as anthropologists are trying to understand the worldview of the people. We would like to understand the culture from the people's perspective, not from our perspective. That means you have to literally penetrate the cultures of the people you are studying, look at the world the way they look at, and also make sense out of the world and their experiences exactly the way those people are making sense of their experiences. And that requires a very sophisticated research method and methodology. And you will be introduced to those various techniques and tools of collecting data. We have something called as participant observation. We conduct interviews. There are ways in which interviews are conducted. There are ways in which questionnaires are designed. And then there are different other techniques like case study method and genealogical method. And those method and methodologies will be is another thing that we will be studying as a part of your syllabus. And then, of course, you have social demography. Demography, as you know, is the study of population. And what we study is not the numbers, but we study the social aspects of a population. Fertility, what are the factors that affect fertility? Death rates, mortality. Are there any differentials in mortality rates? Are there any differentials in fertility rates? Then we also look at sex specific mortality, and we also look at a lot of other aspects of demography, which is extremely important for your general studies. Any understanding of a nation presupposes an understanding of the nation's demography. After all, public policy, economic and financial planning, infrastructure development, the number of schools, hospitals, and the nature of medical care that is required in a nation are all decided by demography. And in India, we have been talking about something called as a demographic dividend, right? We are supposed to be the youngest nation in the world. So, is it really a dividend or a profit, or is it a liability? What is the flip side? What are the positives? All these aspects, which are extremely important for your understanding of general studies, is something that we will be very critically looking at in anthropology. And of course, as I was mentioning earlier, ecological anthropology, that's a small topic again. It tries to answer one question: how humans adapt. There's something very interesting about us. Unlike the fish, which can only live in water, or let's just say, unlike the birds that can fly and only fly, and unlike some animals which can only live on trees, you see, the humanity is not confined to a particular habitat. We live in the polar tundras, like the great Eskimo, the Inuit, as we call them. We live in some of the hottest deserts in the world, like the Bedouin. And we also live in the tropical rainforests, like in Amazon. We also live in semi-tropic, semi-arid areas. We live in coastal areas. And at the same time, we have built our own ecosystems. We call them cities, urban concrete jungles. And no species of animal has the ability to adapt to such a diverse, ecosystems or habitats. And that is something we need to explore. What makes us, so special in the animal world, or even the plant world for that reason, that enables and empowers us to survive in virtually every possible ecosystem in the world. There are certain biological advantages that we have. At the same time, we are also deploying our culture, our behavior as an adaptive tool. When we feel hot in the summers, we switch on our air conditioners. And when it's cold, our behavior changes, our food changes, our clothing changes, everything else. So this adaptive ability of mankind has enabled us to actually dominate the earth in a short span of time. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this fact, that the modern humans have been living on this earth only for the last 40, 50,000 years. Even though we started our evolutionary journey 2 million, 2.5 million years ago, the modern human being, as you and I, have been living on this earth for probably about 40,000 years. And in such a short span of time, we have virtually dominated the earth. Today, you and I are in a position to dictate and determine the destiny of other species, their survival, their extinction. And we are responsible singularly for what is today the world calls the climate change. So, what are the implications? How were our ancestors negotiating with their environment, and how are we doing it? What are the lessons learned, and what is likely to be the future of our species? Are some of the critical questions we need to answer. And you don't have medical anthropology in your syllabus, but you have a small specialization within medical anthropology. In fact, my area of research is in the domain of medical anthropology. I'm an academic anthropologist. I'm an alumnus of the University of Hyderabad. I did my post graduation in the year 1992, and since 1993, I've been involved in teaching and mentoring aspirants for civil services. And one of my areas of research is in the primary health care in tribal areas in India. But what you have in your syllabus is epidemiological anthropology. Epidemiology, I'm sure all of you have come across this term a zillion times because of the pandemic situation that we have faced. And for all of us who are living on the earth right now, probably this is the first pandemic situation we have encountered. And this may not be, unfortunately, the last. We are likely to, encounter similar pandemics, epidemics, and endemics. We keep doing that almost day in and day out. And how are we trying to overcome these challenges? And what are the various aspects of our health, disease? And we also try to understand the difference between disease and illness. and how the different cultures of the world actually interpret the concept of health, disease, and illness is something that we study in this particular chapter. And then we have archaeology. We will have both Indian as well as the world archaeology. But what you have is only prehistoric archaeology. We will be looking at the various techniques of dating, and like you, most of you know about, the moment I say dating, everyone talks about radiocarbon dating, but there are very many other techniques too, like potassium argon and dendrochronology, archaeomagnetism, and very interesting topic. And we will be looking at those principles of prehistoric archaeology, and this and also in the context of Indian archaeology. In fact, the entire chapter overlaps with your history. You have ancient Indian history, proto-historic periods like Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic in paper 2. And then you have your Indus Valley civilization. So the same topics are actually repeated in the anthropology paper 2 as well. And there's no difference. In fact, the topics don't differ just because you're studying them in under different subjects. And then you have physical anthropology too. uh, a majority, I would say about 95% of the aspirants that I have dealt with over my 30 years of experience do not have biology background. And one of the fundamental questions, a very frequent question that students often ask, is that I do not have a background in biology, so can I take anthropology because anthropology has a bit of biology? Well, strictly speaking, we don't study biology. Physical anthropology is not biological anthropology. It is actually biocultural anthropology, where you are supposed to integrate the findings of biological sciences with our own socio-cultural anthropology's findings and try to answer questions about the human biology. But we start with the most basic concepts in biology. You don't expect questions from the basic biology, but it's part of your syllabus because probably all of us have left biology probably at 10th. Some of us must have left biology after 12th. So this will help us in trying to recap whatever we have studied in our school days. We look at the cell structure, the cell division, the same old mitosis and meiosis. We will look at the structure of the chromosomes, the DNA, the genes, and proteins. And the reason why we do it is because we are going to look at these concepts from the perspective of the human species. So, an understanding of human genetics requires you to understand the basics of biology. So, even if you have left biology after 10th, no worries, because we are going to look at them, look at these basic concepts from the scratch in our class. In fact, you are expected to know more biology to clear your prelims than what you're expected to know in the context of physical anthropology. So, no worries there. And then the same old theories of Lamarck, Darwin, even though the world has stopped accepting those theories for some strange reason, they still continue in your syllabus, probably because we would like to know the history of evolutionary theory itself. So Lamarck and Darwin, they are the ones who gave the first comprehensive theories about origin and evolution of life. So we're going to look at it. The modern theory is called the synthetic theory. And then we will be looking at primates. Primatology is the study of primates. Primates are monkeys and apes, and the humans together are the part of a class called Mammalia. We are all mammals. And within that taxonomical category called Mammalia, we belong to this order called primates. We share our membership and relationship with the monkeys and apes. So this is where we are going to look at the non-human primates. And we will be looking at the human evolution also, because I told you the three questions we need to answer. The first one is, who is man? The second is, where did he come from? So that answer to that question, where did he come from, lies in this particular topic. So we will be looking at some of the fossil evidences. You probably have I think 10 to 15% of the total fossil evidences that have been discovered so far. And then human genetics, we need to understand genetics because at the end of the day we are a product of two phenomena. One is nature, the second is nurture. Nature is all about our inborn innate characteristics, and nurture is all about our training and our interaction with the environment and our adaptive strategies. And nature and nurture together make up what we are. So we need to understand the genetic and the biological nature of man, and that's where we will be looking at human genetics, a very interesting topic, in fact. And all these topics are actually highly scoring. In fact, if your answers are perfect, they have the potential to get you 100% marks. One of the reasons anthropology is popular, which I will come to later, is because of the high scores. And some of the topics like these are the ones that have a potential to give you absolute marks as long as your answer is perfect. And then we look at the diversity. Look around you. No two people are alike. Even the so called identical twins are not alike. And there's so much of diversity. The whole world is divided into races. In fact, two children born to the same parents are not alike. So, what causes this diversity? What is the reason behind all these races of mankind? Is something that we will be exploring in this particular chapter called raciology. And the whole concept of race itself is redundant today, but we only look at it from a theoretical and also a little bit of applied perspective. And then we look at growth and development, which we studied in school once again, starting from the fertilization of the egg by the sperm to all the way till our death, the various stages of growth and development we go through. And that's another chapter you have. And finally, we have something called as applied physical anthropology, where, see, anthropology is not just a theoretical science. Anthropologists, in fact, are involved in a lot of things which you and I are not aware of. For example, anthropology is involved in sports. Very few people are aware of this. In fact, we have a specialization called kinanthropometry, a concept and a theory that was born during the Montreal Olympics, I think in the 1970s. And then anthropologists are involved in designing sports equipment. They are also involved in understanding the biodynamics and biomechanics of the human body. And they are also involved in designing defense equipment. And one of the largest defense research anthropologists have undertaken was for the United States Army. And then we are also involved in forensics. Forensis is a Latin word which means the court of law. And anthropologists also are involved in trying to help the various courts of law in trying to solve crime, in personal identification, at times identification of the victims. So anthropology is an applied discipline. So we have an engineering branch also. So that applied aspect of anthropology is what we will be dealing with in this chapter. So this is what, in a nutshell, what you have in paper one of anthropology. There's a lot of relevance of these topics to your general studies, your understanding of the topics in general studies, and general essay, and even your personality test. I'll tell you how once I look at paper two also. Paper two, as I told you, is Indian anthropology. The reason we call it Indian anthropology is because here we are focusing on India, everything to do with Indian culture, the Indian society, and the problems and the challenges, the opportunities, the threats, and everything else about our country. And we start off with the prehistoric archaeology, but the more academically, we will be beginning with demographic and demographic profile of India, Indian population, India's population policy, critical evaluation of India's population policy, the structure of Indian population, the growth of Indian population, and the regional variations in India's population, the fertility rates, the mortality rates, the factors affecting them, and of course the various racial and linguistic groups that make up India, such a beautiful country, which is considered to be one of the most diversified nations in the world. So this is the chapter where we will be looking at the demographic profile of India. And then we have a topic where we will be looking at the traditional Indian social system. We look at the concept of Varna. We look at the concept of Jati, which is caste system. Very often people confuse between Varna and Jati. There is a nuanced difference between them. We'll be looking at that. We look at the ashrama system. There are four ashramas: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. The karma theory, the concept of Rina and rebirth. I mean, these are essentially the foundations of the Indian civilization. And an understanding of the nature of man presupposes the understanding of the philosophical foundations, that ended up influencing the society as it exists today, and also the influence of these philosophical foundations on the basic Indian personality and the mindsets. And this is called the philosophical approach. And this is a small topic, but we will be looking at them because they hold answers to a number of confusing questions that we have when we read the contemporary literature on some of the dimensions of Indian society and culture. And this topic is also enormously helpful in your general studies, especially the areas where you are expected to understand the Indian culture and the foundations of Indian culture. And then we also look at India being a country characterized by multiple religions also. We look at the emergence and the impact of Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism on Indian society. And then we'll also look at the social changes in India, social and cultural changes in India. India is not static. It is, albeit the oldest civilization in the world, it is still one of the most dynamic societies in the world. We have been witnessing changes from within, which are called indigenous, and also changes from without, which are exogenous processes of change. We have been changing amongst ourselves and evolving, and at the same time changing by virtue of borrowing certain cultural and social aspects from other cultures of the world. So this chapter is called the indigenous and exogenous processes of social change. Here is where we will be negotiating with these terms, which are often, misunderstood and misconstrued: Sanskritization, Westernization. We have great and little traditions. We will be looking at Panchayat Raj. Panchayat Raj institutions are also a great source of social change. So, what is the potential they hold for rural masses? Even though we are rapidly urbanizing, a majority of India still lives in its villages. In fact, India has a title, a sobriquet, Gramavasini Bharati. India still resides in its villages. And even the great Indian democracy, it is the rural vote that matters the most. Most of us urban dwellers hardly move out to vote on the general election day. The real democracy thrives in India's villages. That's where the problems and challenges are. And if India's villages are sick, India is sick. If Indian villages are vibrant, India is vibrant. So we need to look at the rural dimensions of India, which we do in rural anthropology. And we also look at Panchayat Raj, the 73rd Amendment, and the potential it has on bringing about social change and revolution in India's villages. We look at both the pros and cons and everything else. And of course, you also have the role of media. I mean, conventional media is press, electronic and press. But today we are also witnessing enormous social media. And today the world is more or less, it has shrunk. and internet, the information technology superhighway, has kind of connected the world like never before. And what is the impact of media? What kind of role can media play in bringing about change in India and elsewhere in the world? But we'll be focusing mostly in the context of India. These are all the topics uh, which are equally important for your general studies, maybe in your general essay. And these are the topics which are interdisciplinary. And as I told you, we being holistic in our approach, we look at these concepts from multiple dimensions. We don't restrict ourselves to a particular view. We pick up all the views and try to integrate and come out with a holistic theory. Holism is all about you say the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So when you put all the parts together, I mean, the meaning, the shape, and everything changes. And that unique anthropological approach to understanding the conventional topics will actually add enormous value to the way you write your answers in general studies too. So that's a great advantage, I should say, uh, for anthropology students. And as I told you, rural anthropology, we will be looking at even impact of globalization on villages. And people may not reckon that globalization has a direct impact on villages. It does. So it has an impact on the rural economy. It has an impact on the rural climate. And it also has an impact on the rural personalities that is seldom discussed in the other textbooks. Rural culture. So we need to look at these forces and the way they are rapidly transforming the village life. And then, of course, we also look at the backward classes, the most important area. In fact, section 1 of paper 2 is where you will look at a lot of theoretical and conceptual areas. And section 2 of paper 2 is all applied anthropology. Your entire paper 2 overlaps with your GS. We look at the origin of minority concept, the problems and challenges of minorities. There are two types of minorities the Constitution of India recognizes, isn't it? Religious and linguistic. So we study everything from a historical point of view. We go to the origins, the roots, and then trace the problems. And then we look at the socio-economic conditions, and we look at the way in which other countries in the world are dealing with and negotiating with their minorities, and the way in which our approach in India, the Constitution's approach in India, is tailor made for the Indian context. So, this is where we will be critically evaluating almost all the aspects of both the linguistic as well as the religious minorities in India. And then, of course, we will be looking at scheduled castes right from the origin of the concept. Who are they? Where did they emanate from? Why do we call them scheduled castes? What are the other names? What has been their exploitation and deprivation and the challenges they have suffered from historically? What does the Constitution say? The various safeguards, programs. And then, of course, we also look at other backward classes, like other backward classes, denotified communities. Denotified communities, once upon a time, were unfortunately notified under what is called as the Criminal Tribes Act by the Britishers. And once that act has been repealed, and these communities have been denotified from that list, we call them the denotified communities. A majority of them constitute nomadic and semi-nomadic communities in India, and we'll be looking at them and their welfare and their challenges and their problems too. And then, of course, you also have a major focus in anthropology is on tribes. You will understand why we focus on tribes a lot in anthropology is because when I discuss in the class, you will know it. But to put it in a nutshell, we study the so-called primitive societies. In fact, they are not primitive in their culture, personality, or whatever. It's a word of unfortunate choice. They are the people with primitive technologies. They are simple societies. They are the indigenous, aboriginal groups everywhere in the world, including India. And anthropologists started focusing on them is because all the other social sciences you see are anyway studying the contemporary societies. Sociology studies contemporary modern society. Political science studies modern societies. Economists do that. But nobody is looking at the indigenous cultures. And why do we focus on them? Because they are the ones who are the living representatives of our own past. They are the ones who are reflecting our own origins. And I think it was George Santayana who said, a man who forgets his history is doomed to repeat it. And we need to look at our origins. We need to understand our ancestors and our previous original organic cultures are actually protected by the contemporary indigenous communities. So we study them, compare them with the modern societies, and try to make or gather some information about the direction in which the human beings have evolved. And since our focus was mostly on the indigenous cultures, when Indian anthropologists were focusing on the tribes in India, they also started discovering a number of problems that those people suffer from. Much of the problems the tribes in India suffer from are because of their culture contact with the so-called non-tribal people. When the mainstream society was abruptly juxtaposed, with the indigenous cultures, it resulted in a series of problems. And these problems date back to time immemorial. And we try to look at the tribal problems very meticulously, microscopically, critically. And we look at the problems of land alienation. We look at the problems of their health, education, indebtedness, and poverty. And all these areas are very important for your general studies too. And also we look at ethnicity, ethnic conflicts. And we also look at a special category of 75 scheduled tribes in India who have been designated as PBTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups. And these are the ones who are living in a pre agricultural level of technology, hunters and gatherers, nomadic they are. And it is our responsibility, a constitutional obligation to recognize them, identify the problems, protect them, and ensure that the discrimination, exploitation is removed. So that is a major chunk of your section 2 in paper 2. And then of course we look at the role of anthropology, the role of NGOs in tribal and rural development. And then we look at some of the problems that India has been having, which is not unique to India though. The problems of ethnicity, regionalism, communalism, the concept of secularism, the way the world interprets secularism, the way we interpret it. What are the theoretical and conceptual propositions in this context is what we look at in paper 2. So that, my friends, is a bird's eye view of what the anthropology syllabus entails. And broadly, paper 1 and paper 2. And I'm sure you must have realized that there is a heavy overlap with whatever you also have in your general studies, and enormously helpful for general essay too. And how does anthropology behave as an optional? Well, it's very amenable irrespective of academic background, because what kind of an academic background do you require to master anthropology? Geography, we have it. Economics, we do. Medical science, yes. Biology, of course. Sociology, political science. Every branch of knowledge, including philosophy, is an integral part of anthropology. So there's actually, I would say, it's like a very complicated quilt where all of us can identify with this discipline at one level or the other. In fact, the founding fathers of anthropology were never anthropologists, obviously. There were geographers, there were mathematicians, physicists, And some of the stalwarts in anthropological theory essentially had PhDs in mathematics and physics and geography and whatnot. Philosophers, travelers, Christian missionaries, and many other people have contributed to the origins and also the growth of anthropology as a discipline. And that's the reason why I always keep saying that when you choose anthropology, there's a level playing field amongst all the students. You're not competing with someone who has had anthropology as one of their graduate subjects or disciplines. You're not competing. Let us take any other optional subject. You probably are competing with a graduate or a postgraduate or even a PhD in that particular discipline. But when it comes to anthropology, there's a level playing field. And irrespective of the academic background, anthropology is chosen mainly because, one, it has a very well defined syllabus, very structured syllabus, and that helps because when you look at the even the length of the syllabus in your gazette, it probably looks very daunting and longer, but it's not. You know why it kind of looks pretty comprehensive? Because every topic, every subtopic and subtopic is already spelled out very clearly in your syllabus. No shockers. You know what to study, what is expected of you by the demands of this examination. And that is one of the reasons why students have been opting for this discipline. And having a structured and an organized and a well defined syllabus is important, because in this exam, at least that's what I personally feel, you should know what not to read, because you are racing against time. You have to maneuver through a lot of areas in general studies and general essay. Then you have your optional papers. So it's better to have a clarity, better to have a blueprint, a roadmap as to how you should navigate and maneuver through the various levels of this examination. And then, of course, you can go through some previous year question papers, which I'm sure you can access from the public domain. Look at the questions, pretty straightforward and very precise. And that's another great advantage with anthropology. The examiner makes it pretty obvious what he or she is expecting from you. I mean, no shockers in that way. And the topics are objective. In a sense, let me explain why I use the word objective here. There's very little in majority of areas, there's very little that we can contribute as our personal opinion. This is a well established science. The facts and the figures and the points are very crystal, and you have to present it in a very organized way, and you can pocket the marks. There is very little scope for you to go astray. There's very little scope for you to look at a concept from a different perspective. Whatever multiple perspectives we have about a aspect is something you and I will hammer it out in the classroom itself, in the classroom discussions. But by the time we finish a topic, there will be a clarity as to what exactly we are expected to deliver in the form of an answer. And that's another great advantage about this. Very rarely are you asked to comment on your own, maybe 5% or even 3%. But otherwise, the topics are objective, and you're expected to put the points in a crisp and a clear way, and no scope for confusion. And that's what makes it very, shall I say, user friendly. That's what it is. And as I told you, it interfaces with GS and SA. I have listed down some topics. I'll show you. And most importantly, a majority of you come from engineering and non-social science background. And even if you come from a social science background, it matters. Civil service examination is one of the toughest examinations in the world. This is a place where mediocrity doesn't have a foothold. You need to be excellent. your conceptual clarity, your understanding of yourself, your society, your neighborhood, your nation, your culture, and the world has to be meticulous. And for you to achieve that level of intellectual clarity, you need to have a basic grounding in the concepts that we normally discuss as a matter of fact in anthropology. The critical analysis that you're expected to have and do in general studies and general essay and even your personality test requires a context. And anthropology is the one that can give you that context for that critical thinking and that critical analysis. So I'm not here to sell anthropology to you. I'm giving you an objective opinion as to what this discipline is all about. And do not forget that both of us are on the same side of the team when we negotiate this exam. So these are some of the points I can say that has made this optional a very popular one. And approximately, I think about 13 to 15% of the final selected candidates invariably have anthropology. At least that's what I could gather from the information that has been published and available in the public domain. And these are the areas, some of the areas that anthropology overlaps and interfaces with. Like you have your salient features of Indian society, unity in diversity. You have traditional Indian social system, which you're expected to at least understand either in history or in your Indian culture and heritage. Population and associated issues, poverty and development issues, NGOs, the civil society organizations, media, and the role of media, and almost all the backward classes, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, minorities, OBCs, the concept of backward class in India, and where did they emerge from, what are the challenges, safeguards, programs, reservation policy, the pros and cons, and everything else will be dealt by us, and that too at a very high level, much more than the demands of your general studies. That's why anthropology adds a lot of flavor and a lot of, I would say, it adds a lot of value to the answers that you're writing in general studies. And the difference in the quality of the answers is perceptible when you read a general studies answer written by someone who has taken anthropology as an optional, is much more different and better than someone who doesn't. And then, of course, the impact of urbanization, industrialization, globalization. And then globalization also, everything we study is holistic. So globalization for an economist is purely economical. Ask a political scientist, they talk about the impact of globalization, the comparative politics and stuff like that. But we look at all the aspects, from personality to religion to interpersonal relations to economy, polity, resources, climate, and whatnot. And then, of course, the concept of communalism, the concept, I'm talking about the theoretical concept, how it plays itself out, history of communalism in India. Communalism is not just religious communalism. Communalism is a much more all encompassing term. In India, we have caste communalism, we have religious communalism, we have regional communalism, we have linguistic communalism. So we need to understand communalism from all these perspectives. And secularism, regionalism, ethnic conflicts, ethnicity, and of course your prehistory, which is directly overlapping with your ancient India. So these are the areas where there is interface or overlap or whatever you call it with your general studies. In fact, you don't have to study anything specially for general studies. If you happen to be a student of anthropology, we will be dealing with them routinely in our class. And that's where you're going to save a lot of time by cutting down on duplications and redundancies and whatnot. And this is how your question paper is. Like any other optional, there's no difference. You have two papers, 250 marks each. and total 500. And remember that optional is your sheet anchor. Whatever may be your optional is a sheet anchor. It's going to propel you into those much sought after services, higher ranks, and everything else, including your cadres. So because general studies is vast, the scope of the syllabus is not specific, whereas an optional is something which you are sure of. You know what you have to study, you can prepare well. And subjects like anthropology, you can even go with pre-prepared answers in your mind. You're trained in it, and there are hardly any shockers, because there is some element of predictability in anthropology. So optional, that 500 marks is very critical. That 500 marks is something that you try to pocket to the most. And each paper is again divided into two sections. In each section, you will have four questions. Overall, you're supposed to attempt five questions. But question number 1 and 5, that is the first question in section A and first question in section B, are compulsory. There will be short notes with internal choice. And out of the balance, you have to pick up any three and write. And there is no word limit. You know, 2015, I consider, is a paradigm shift in general studies, especially UPSC, because you no more have those unlimited additional sheets and all. Only the question number 1 and 5, that is short notes, have a word limit of around 150 words. But for all the other questions, there is a predefined space, and you're expected to write whatever you want to write within that predefined space. I'm sure you're aware of this, and all this you'll understand as we go through the various stages of our preparation. So this is how the papers are organized, and no difference. This is something that is very similar to other optionals as well. And then let me also give you a couple of inputs about answer writing. A good answer, requires multiple things. You need to get the right content. You need to write in the specific number of words or specific amount of space. And you need to also stick to the time that is allocated to you. And that's not all. You need to have good presentation skills. You need to have a clarity of thought. You need to have a logical continuity when you're writing an answer. And all this while your handwriting, it should be legible and neat. And wherever possible, you should also have supporting flowcharts or illustrations or line drawings or whatever. Most of the time, students try to overwhelm themselves by looking at the list of things that are expected of a student to write a good answer. Do not try to achieve all of them in one go. You require clarity of thought. You do require a proper presentation skill. You also need to develop some kind of a legibility in your handwriting, which most of us don't have. And do not try to achieve all these prerequisites in one go. They all will come to you surely, steadily. And you will only be able to master the art of writing answers if you practice. And practice takes time. And that is something which is an ongoing and a continuous process in our class. I'll explain to you the methodology that I adopt shortly. Remember one thing, irrespective of whatever optional you may take, there are three things that I consider as the holy trinity of UPSC civil service exam: clarity of thought, the range of application, and the third one is the power of expression. Clarity of thought is my job. The reason you are enrolling yourself in a class is to develop that clarity of thought. which is unfortunately something that is not always accessible when you read a book. You need to have someone who can explain to you the structure of that idea, what that concept is, and the various facets that exist, the paradigms, the perspectives that exist, and how we can resolve the confusion. That is clarity of thought. This is something which is the job of the faculty. The second is the range of application. Especially in social sciences, the same phenomenon must have been studied, explained, elaborated, and researched by different people from different perspectives. Like, take culture, for example. It's probably one of the oldest terms in social science vocabulary. And ironically, the word culture is from biology. I'll explain to you probably when we meet in the class. And the concept of culture has been dealt for hundreds and hundreds of years by almost all the branches of knowledge, starting with the philosophers. And when you try to understand the concept of culture in an anthropological class, you need to probably have an understanding of this concept from at least the most significant perspectives as possible and arrive at something much more meaningful. Let us say 200, 300 words about the concept of culture in this span of 5.5 months that we are going to have. It's a big ask, but we are going to achieve it. That clarity of thought is something that is the responsibility of me, the faculty, in trying to unravel the mysteries of anthropology, the meanings of the concepts, and understanding the concept from, as I keep saying, the holistic point of view. The second is the range of application, multiple applications of the same concept, looking at the same phenomenon from different perspectives. And this range will come to you if you read many books, which you don't have to do, because that's the reason we exist as faculty. The different perspectives, the different established researchers will be perused and collected, collated, and will be given to you on a platter. So, clarity of thought and range of application is what the faculty steps in. The third is the expression. On the D day, on the day that matters the most, you're supposed to write an answer. All your preparation, the hard work you have put in, the sacrifices you have made, ultimately boggles down to that day when you're writing your answer. And if that answer is not reflecting the effort that you have put in, it's a wasted effort. So that's a continuous process. The power of expression is something that comes from the clarity of thought. The power of expression also comes in your linguistic ability and also from the quality of the books that you read. And this can only come with practice. So don't worry. That is something that is achievable, and definitely it's not an insurmountable problem, and many have achieved it. So this takes time, this takes hard work, this takes commitment, and most importantly, this is not a part-time affair. You're supposed to indulge yourself, involve yourself from the word go uh, till the last minute. Never give up. And remember, even the world's best sportsman still practices every single day. And that's how preparing for this exam is. You need to keep practicing every single day. And coming to the methodology that we adopt, see, I'll be dealing with almost 85% of the syllabus: sociocultural, primatology, human evolution, epidemiology, ecology, the entire sociocultural anthropology, and the entire paper too. And my colleague, Mr. Vinoy Krishna, will be dealing with biology and human genetics and growth and development and races. And between both of us, we should be taking around 5 to 5.5 months and not more than that to complete the whole syllabus. You will have classes 6 days a week. That excludes Sundays, obviously, but you may expect classes to happen on Sundays too, if the time demands or if a topic demands. And each of the class is for 2.5 hours, and the classes are always interactive, and it's not always a monologue. Expect students to interact, and there will be access to multiple sources of information. One is, of course, our lectures. You are expected to, you may take down the running notes, but you will be given 3 volumes of printed study material. So you will have access to the printed study material, 3 volumes. And apart from that, you will also have access to the student portal. And through that student portal, we keep uploading, what shall I say, digital handouts, PDFs. And there's a lot of dynamic in every discipline. A lot of things keep happening around the world that are related to anthropology. Not everything is relevant to the exam, but should something be important and relevant to you people, rest assured it will come as a handout to you. The current affairs, the events that are happening in the world to do with anything that is going on in the domain of anthropology. I'll give you one example. Uh, Recently, the Supreme Court of India was debating about legalizing the same-sex marriages. In paper one, when we pick up the chapter on marriage, one of the questions we need to answer is, can we define marriage universally? The answer is no. The reason is because marriage, as it is conceived, understood, practiced, and interpreted by the different peoples of the world, has is different. And marriages based on homosexuality are as old as 5,000 years old. And there are different ways in which the different cultures of the world interpret this institution called marriage. Marriage is not mating. Mating is something that happens in animals and plants too. But in the context of the human beings, marriage is an institution. It's an organized way of doing something. And that institutional mechanism through which we are trying to achieve the functions of this marriage are interpreted differently by different societies. So, one of the challenges that India is currently encountering is whether to legalize the same sex marriage or not. And what are the pros and cons? That's a current affair for us. So, like this, there are so many. Take, for example, the ethnic conflict that's happening in Northeast, or it's happening in other parts of India. There's almost every single day something or the other that's happening in the world or in our country, which is related to whatever we discuss in the class. I keep telling my students, maybe in 1 week or 15 days into our classes, I assure you, I mean, I bet you will start seeing anthropology everywhere around you. And that's how, this discipline touches all of us in every walk of life. And your perspective towards yourself, your perspective towards your society, your culture, your family, and your nation and this world will completely change, hopefully, at the end of this syllabus. Because anthropology is not just a discipline, it's a way of looking at the world around you, it's a way of life. And you will realize this as we are going through the various levels of our preparation. And there's a lot of goings on in the world of anthropology. I'm an academic professional anthropologist, and I have access to most of this journals and whatever you call them, periodicals. If something is relevant, it'll come to you. Don't worry about it. And you don't need to refer to anything outside the printed material, the class notes, and the handouts. You have too much coming to you, anyways. And if you are still interested in reading something more, I'll let you know where to access the resources. But in addition to that, you need to also look at some government websites, because the government programs is an integral part of your GS and anthropology. So you just, anyway, you will be reading India yearbook, or maybe some websites you will be referring to. That's enough, good enough. Government programs and constitutional safeguards will not change from source to source or discipline to discipline. They remain same. They're static, and we're going to save a lot of time there because of the overlap. And then every every chapter in your syllabus, every topic, I will upload chapter wise questions even before the topic is discussed. So you will always have access to chapter wise questions. You will have access to previous year questions from each of those topics, and you can start writing from day one. And every time I finish a topic, we'll discuss the possible questions and discuss some of the PYQs and how they could have been dealt and how we should deal with them. What should be the structure of the answer? Because ultimately, what is the deliverable? As far as you are concerned, the key deliverable after your training is you should be able to write an answer which is convincing enough for the examiner to award you marks. And that's what we need to achieve. And it will take not only the duration of the coaching, but it'll take even the time beyond coaching. So it's an ongoing exercise, and will handhold you. That's not a problem. We'll be evaluating all your answers personally, regularly, and all the structures of the answers will anyway be discussed as and when we complete the topics. So that's uh, the methodology for you. So if you have any kind of questions, you are most welcome to ask me. Thank you all for joining this webinar. And if you have any questions beyond this, you are welcome to mail me. That's my email ID, Karthik, Kartic. That's how I spell my name, .anthro@gmail. And if you want to know what should be the resources or the books that one should refer to, that's not meant for the students who are joining my course, because when you join my course, I don't expect you to read anything else. What I give you is more than enough. And there's a blog, and there's some general topics in anthropology, some answer writing tips and all. You're welcome to refer to that blog, karthik.guru. So any questions, please fire away. Ashok, thanks for letting me know. I would appreciate if you can mail me the link, and I'll go through it. Then thanks so much for letting us know, and we'll really appreciate if you can share the link to that concern to me. I think this session should be available. I think you should be able to access it on YouTube. No problem, Pranav. I can understand. I think you can access this session offline later on. Maximus, which is the best and the easiest optional? Well, you're competing with the best brains in the country, and you have to prove that you're one of them, Maximus. And I'm sure any optional or any subject, there's a level playing field. The amount of preparation, the level of syllabus, the quality, quantity, all the subjects are equally placed. So it's left to you to make the best use of an optional. And you are the one who needs to make an optional the easiest, and you are the one to make it the best. Classes, Mahavir, classes will be both offline and online. Offline classes, if you are planning to take the classes in our premises, and you can also join our classes online. There's no difference in online and offline. The material, the books, and our online classes are live, and they are very immersive. There is no difference in the quality of my interaction with you and vice versa, just because you are in an online mode. Because they are live, you can interact, you can type your questions, I answer your questions whether you're online or offline, it doesn't matter. And everything else is the same. So if you think you would like to attend the classes online, you're most welcome to, because these batches are all hybrid. You can choose either of the two options. Um, is my screen size? My screen size was small because there was a sharing going on. I think I'm now big enough for you to see me. Brajesh, I think I've answered your question about physical anthropology. You are not, we don't expect any student to have any biology background or whatever you want to call it, because we start from the basics. In fact, the level of biology that you have to understand to make sense of physical anthropology is very less compared to the amount of biology you're expected to learn under science and technology and even your general studies prelims. So don't worry. I mean, everything is something that can be managed. And more, as I told you, 95% of my students have been from non-biology background. I had commerce, engineering, mathematics, physics, even other humanities and social science discipline. And the reason anthropology is popular is mainly because of its scoring, and that scoring is again mainly because of the physical anthropology part. So nothing to worry about it. I'm sure you'll start enjoying it, because understanding humanity requires a 360-degree perspective, biological, social, and cultural. And we strictly do not study biology, it's biocultural anthropology. That's why I keep insisting that when you're reading a book, please read a book written by an anthropologist and not by a biologist, because the nuances of understanding physical anthropology is something that will be missing when you refer to a book that is written by, let us say, a zoologist or a biologist, because this is a completely different perspective and an approach that we follow in physical anthropology. So I think Kamal Nayan, I think I answered that question. You don't need to have any background in biology, science, or whatever, because we have virtually almost everything, every branch of knowledge in anthropology. In the branch of knowledge is represented in anthropology, and your syllabus is so wonderfully made that in fact you will start learning everything from the basics, from the ABC of anthropology we study. And what you have is a very basic level of anthropology. And Shiv Shakti, I think I've answered that question. It's both online and offline. Cons about anthropology. One is that you do not have a single source study material. You have to refer to multiple books for one topic. Like, take for example, caste system. If you have to learn about caste system is probably one of the most studied and researched social phenomena in the history of mankind. There's so many books written, so many publications and research, PhD theses on caste, and everyone is right in his or her own way. And to compile, collect, and then try to make a note out of it is going to be a daunting task. And if you keep doing those kind of things, you may probably end up only preparing notes for next 3 or 4 years to come. And the problem essentially emanates from the fact that you don't have a single source material. You need to, that is one, I would say, a challenge when it comes to anthropology. Reliable material, quality material, which is a single source material. That's one. Two, there are many dynamic aspects in the discipline, especially in paper two. So your answer should be able to reflect the goings on. Your answer should reflect or understanding an old concept from a new perspective. And that perspective, if it is lacking, then you will end up scoring less than what you were expecting. So these are some of the challenges. And then, of course, number three, I just was mentioning, many people end up reading the material prepared by amateurs, which are one-sided, or which are like in physical anthropology. If you read a book written by a biologist, it will be grounded in biology and less in anthropology. In fact, none in anthropology. Anthropological perspectives are very different and unique. Biology and biological anthropology are different. Political science and political anthropology are different. So there's a reason why this discipline was born, in order to fill in those gaps. And that is the biggest challenge according to me. And if you happen to be doing the study on your own, then you need to keep these points in mind, that read a book which is high quality, and something which is reliable. You don't have to do anything before joining the class for physical anthropology, Brajesh. It shall be taken care of. We'll start with the basics, so nothing to worry about it. Shri, you are appearing the exam in 2025. You can take anthropology. See, one of the strategies is that try to finish your optional before your prelims, so that after the prelims the only thing you will do is revise and attend the test series and keep writing and getting your answers evaluated, because after prelims you will have very little time to learn something new. So you need to better finish your optional, because this is one area which you're sure of. The syllabus is defined, and the only things that you probably need to brush up, since you're taking the exam in 2025, is keep adding those new dimensions that keep appearing, like current affairs and all that. But otherwise, 90% of the syllabus is static. There's nothing that will change. Only the examples may change, but the theory and concepts won't change. So it doesn't matter when you take it, because you're destined to take it someday or the other. Might as well do it now, and master the subject, because you have the luxury of time on your side. So that's how I look at it. um, I have enrolled, but I can't log in. I'm not sure, Mr. Harsh Mishra, what you're saying. The student portal, you mean? It'll take time. I think it'll get activated once the classes start. Muskan, I think you refer to that one of the blogs where I've given a list of books. But if you are planning to join the course, I don't think you need to read any of them. Harish, I think I just answered that question. You don't have to read any biology before joining the classes. Thanks, Aditya Dhanraj. Terminologies, Mr. Siddharth Pandey. How much content we have to remember? Siddharth ji, you need to remember the terms and terminology in every subject in UPSC. Even in general studies, you have these are called jargons, technical terms. And do not worry, there is a way to remember them, because when we discuss and encounter these terms day in and day out, you will not forget them. Trust your memory. There's a reason we call ourselves Homo sapiens. Sapien means wise, and we have that wisdom. And don't worry, you will remember. There's very little you need to remember by rote memory. The terminologies automatically will come to you when you need them. So don't worry about it. You don't have to do any cramming and diagrams. No diagrams. I don't expect you to be a Michelangelo or a Pablo Picasso. Some stick diagrams. I mean, you should see the diagrams I draw, and as long as you are able to communicate what you are trying to explain through words by a small illustration, that's enough. You don't have to draw three-dimensional, and you don't have that luxury of illustrating for every answer. Not required. Remember, the longest answer is still a short note, and you're not writing elaborate verbose essays anymore. You have a space constraint and a word limit or a time limit. So a simple stick diagram in some places, so you will understand it. Don't worry. This is all about mains, Amol. Uh, Akshita, what should we prepare before coming to the class? It is better you prepare because I normally tell you the topic I'm going to discuss the next day, and you will have your material with you even before I start the topic. If the books take some time to reach you, if you are an online mode, normally the post may take some time. I will that particular relevant chapter will be uploaded for you. You can download and read the topic, and when you read the topic and come to the class, it's good. At times you may not understand anything in that reading before the class, but it's okay, give it a shot. But if you read, you make it a habit of reading before and after, much of the work is done. Because normally you don't tend to forget the concepts, you tend to forget the way in which the concept has to be explained, and that is something that will come only by reading and reading. There's no shortcut. So good to read and come. In fact, I urge uh, students to read and come. And in Sanskrit, there's a saying, Spadhaya Vardhate Vidya. The more and more you and I debate with each other, discuss with each other, the more will be the blossoming of the knowledge. Yeah, every one of you asking a question may result in a new perspective, a new dimension. It can open a new vista or a new window of looking at that old concept in a new way. And that's why, and anthropology is all about us. We are not going to talk about some alien strange species. Whatever we are going to discuss is about ourselves. You know what Aristotle called anthropology? He called it a gossip. He called it a gossip that revolves around man. An anthropologist is a gossiper who talks about himself. So you and I are going to gossip in our class, but this is more an organized, structured, scientific, and a more polished gossip. So there's nothing that you wouldn't know. You already know most of the things we are going to talk about. It's just that we are going to package them in the name of anthropology and deliver. That's exactly what we are going to do. As I told you, Saurav, it's about, normally it is about 12 to 14, 12 to 15%. That is the final selection list. So it varies always. There is a variation every year, but normally 12, 13, 14 percent of the students in the final list. Yes, even if you are in an offline class, I think you have an option to access a particular class video for 2 days or something like that. And if you have missed a particular offline class, all of you have, both online and offline students, the class recording will be available for 2 or 3 days after the class is over. That helps you in revising. If you are looking at the lecture in the class from one perspective, maybe when you are revising a topic from a recorded video, a new perspective may open up, and you can quickly revise. I know you guys do it, I think, in 1.5 or double speed, but don't do that. Classes will be starting from the basic concepts. Do not worry about it. With the spelling of anthropology, I start. So, in fact, the syllabus is also made in. So that's what I told you. There's a way in which we have to study the syllabus, not the way it has been published. So, we will build the brick one over the other. So, all the foundations will be laid, and then we will, expand our horizons as we move forward. Yes, anyone can take anthropology. Thank you, Saheb. Good to see you here, Saheb. Um, Rishabh, the caste-based reservations, correct? Why don't we deal with that in the class? Because I may end up consuming 2-3 hours to answer that question. You need to understand caste, and then you need to understand the issues of the caste, and then we need to understand the philosophy behind reservations, and then juxtapose all these concepts and then arrive at an answer. So we'll see that. Aryan, I think that question is answered. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anthropology is the most agnostic to your academic background. Agnostic in a sense, it's unrelated to your academic background. And there is no link between our academics and this examination. I'm sure you must have heard this from other faculty too. You know, you may be anything in your academics, but this examination is a different ball game. You may have even studied anthropology. I have students who have done their MA, MPhils, and even PhDs in anthropology who attend my classes, is because the way we have to look at and prepare ourselves for in this exam is very different. Academics is very different. Academics, your academic excellence and your performance in this exam are totally unrelated. And trust me when I tell you that. And Rishabh, I answered. You can they are there in my blog, so you can go through those. Anthropology optional Sri Sri is available in some of the states. One of my students last year, in fact, has topped in anthropology for Bihar State Public Service Commission. I think it's also there in Uttar Pradesh Public Service Commission. Karnataka, I think it is there. I'm not sure, but it's there in many of the state public service commissions. You don't have to unlearn whatever you have studied in other social sciences, Shailaja, because the basic concepts and theories are taken from the other social sciences if they exist, and we look at it from our perspective. We never repeat what other sciences do. We only fill the gaps when none exist. And you will be understanding this if as we study anthropology. This Amandeep, how many case studies do we need to do? There's nothing like how many case studies. In fact, this is one of the most misunderstood domains of anthropology for civil services. I've seen students only writing case studies and not the answer. You know, you won't have time, you won't have space and the words for a case study. A case study is supposed to be used as an example to support whatever you have said. You have, in order to prove or testify whatever you have written, you need to quote or cite a case study. But the case study itself is not the answer. And every topic we discuss, wherever it is relevant, we will be discussing them time and again. And as and when new events keep happening, especially let us say tribal welfare or backward classes or some Supreme Court judgment or some other issue in the society, they end up becoming the case studies for us. So you will understand this as you start practicing writing answers and as you maneuver through the preparation. Saurav, you can. Absolutely no problem. In fact, all your three topics have an overlap with whatever we have in anthropology. There's no source for current affairs, Rahul Shiva. Are you the same Rahul Shiva who was my student? Just keep reading the newspapers and my handouts. And if anything else that you come across interesting, share it with me. If it is relevant, I'll incorporate it and let you know. NCRT is not required, Aditya. Of course, the basics of Indian society and culture. You anyway we will be doing the basic Indian, not just Indian, but basic concepts in society and culture. We will be studying as a part of our syllabus, so you don't require. And tribal anthropology is essentially that, Shivanshi. What I told you, we will be enormously focusing on the applied tribal aspects in paper 2, where we'll be looking at the tribal ethnographic profiles. We will be looking at the tribal problems, challenges, opportunities, threats, and everything else. Tribal ethnography, we call it, the study of the tribal people. Yes, daily answer writing is most welcome, and you are welcome to give me assignments. Aryan, yes. Managing time, Bhaskar, with your current PCM. When you are sitting in my class, do not forget that you're completing one reading of the subject. and the topic. I expect students to revise. You may probably take half an hour to 40 minutes to revise whatever we have done in the class every day, or before coming to the next day's class. Just brush up on whatever we have done before. Whenever you have time, you already will have the list of questions topic wise. Whenever you have time, pick up a question that interests you, or pick up a previous year question which I will give you, and attempt an answer and give it to me. And over a period of time, you get habituated to this whole process. And after some time, you will realize that you are coming closer to the standard answer writing. You will go to the level of self evaluating yourself when you write an answer. So it will become a mechanical process after some time. And writing answers, how to write, how to make presentations, how to illustrate, and all, I will be telling you. And there's no point in me trying to tell you anything now in vacuum, because if we pick up a question after we discuss the concept, then I will be able to better tell you what should be, how you can introduce, what are the points you should cover, how we can conclude, and how we can present any particular list in a illustration or a flow chart or a table, something that we will deal. Let's cross the bridge when we come to it. But remember one thing, irrespective of what your optional is, sociology, geography, history, political science, or philosophy, or psychology, the effort is the same. It's nothing like more effort in one subject and less effort in the other. And the method and the methodology you have to follow is also the same. It's just that you have chosen a different subject as your optional to reach the same goal that others have chosen. Let us say a different subject as an optional. There's a level playing field. All the optionals are at the same level. All students have to put in the same effort. The expectations are same. The challenges are same. The opportunities are same. Everything is same. It's left to you, to make the best use of the opportunity to interact with the teacher. It's left to you. See, you get the teacher you deserve. You get the subject you deserve. you know uh, People like me, the faculty, we are like, let us say, a police officer at the crossroads or a constable at the crossroads, who will be telling you the right direction and the wrong direction, but they won't travel the journey with you. You're on your own. But how best you will equip yourself with before leaving the uh, coaching is something that you need to decide. You have to make use of our interaction. You have to utilize our interactions and our engagement to the maximum. So it's left to you. The ball will always be in your court. So that's what it is. Yes, Antriksh, you can start in your last year. In fact, that's a very good time to start. I have many students, young student who joined me in the third year of her graduation, and first attempt she went through. Today she is one of the youngest IAS officers in her times, and also reached a pinnacle of a position at a very young age. So you have your own advantage. So start early, no problem. Akshita, yes, if it is going to inspire you, please do go through what the toppers are saying. It's better to understand other people's experiences, but at the same time, remember that no two people are alike. Do not try to replicate everything they do, because their opportunities and their challenges are different from yours. So go through it for you to get inspired and motivated by them, but do not try to completely replicate, is because this is the exam that has to be dealt at your own level. You are in your own shoe. Do not forget it. You alone will fit in your shoe. That's the reason why you it's not always prudent to copy something somewhere. Take the advice, but tailor make it to suit your own situation. Your GS classes are clashing. Do not worry. We have more than enough number of batches running simultaneously. So you will be shifted. So that should not be a worry at all. You can contact the admin and they will take care of the rest. Raja, I do not want to answer any questions to deal with the subject. Should the Meithei community give an ST status? We need to look at the problems and challenges from a historical perspective. So we'll try to answer the question after understanding the entire background. Okay. The class timings will be 5:30 to 8 is what the published time is. And I'm available 24/7 on my email and on the student portal also. You can ask the doubt or you can mail me your doubts. I'm always I'll try my best to be real time with your emails, so nothing to worry there. You can always interact with me before and after the class. It's not that I'm going to vanish immediately after the class. I'll hang around and trying to answer your questions. I normally request students to ask questions in an open class. You know why? So that others who probably had a similar doubt can also benefit from your questioning and me answering. That will actually cut down on a lot of redundancy and save us all time. And your question may lead to, as I told you already, a new way of looking at an old problem. So you may, through your question, you may inspire me to look at something which is supposedly unrelated, but maybe related because of the way you looked at it. So that's what I mean when I say Spardhaya Vardate Vidya. So we'll have open discussions in the class. I always welcome it. It will be more engaging and we all can thoroughly enjoy our interaction should everything happen in the class. Online students, you are welcome to ask me questions on the chat box and I look at your questions also real time. I will be looking at you like the way I'm looking at you people now, and the way I'm answering these questions, I'll answer your questions online also. And you are all both online and offline. You can interact with me even on my email, and you have a student portal through which you can also raise a question which I will answer. So multiple channels available for us to interact. There's no cramming, Amandeep. Lot of tribes names, fossils, evolutionary. No, no, no. Each one is very beautifully, seamlessly organized. So do not worry. Everything will look daunting when you are not aware of the what's in store for you. Okay. So once we take a plunge, and learn to swim, things become more and more clear. So don't get overwhelmed by the syllabus, the terminologies, and all, is because there is always a first time. So remember, and once things become clearer and easier, we can maneuver through it. Nothing is impossible. Uh, Ashu, I didn't understand your question. Ashu Bharadwaj, from whom does just go through Vajiram's website for all the details, and I'm sure they carry everything, class timings, and everything. Um you're seeing my live video, but you're feeling bored. Oh, okay. I mean, that's I don't know whether it's my issue or with you, but focus. Don't multitask. Online students, I know, multitask when they are attending classes, and you need to really focus. Assume that you are in my class and any class for that reason, and this is the problem you will also face in general studies also. So at least you have a luxury of sitting in the comforts of your own uh, premises and then going through the class with less distractions, I hope. But in a class, yes, you have no choice, but you're forced to look at me. Uh, so try to avoid all that. So focus on the lecture, since this is only a general discussion, maybe, but nothing to feel sorry about. No worries. Okay. And sociology and anthro, take a call, look at the previous year's question papers, see whether you see, develop an aptitude. Remember one thing, you're literally married to this subject for almost another year and a half or 2 years to come, and you need to be very careful when you choose your optional. So go through the syllabus, attend the webinars conducted by my colleagues and other distinguished faculty, and go through the previous year's questions, talk to some peers and seniors, and based on the way you are able to consume a subject, choose your optional. Okay, and do not take an optional because someone told you. Take it if it convinces you, if you think you will enjoy it and you can use it to propel you into that orbit that you're aiming for. Okay. And yes, Raj, I hope and I am sure that it will help you in becoming a good civil servant too. And I'm proud of many of my students. Yes, Kerala State Board will be helpful because the basic concepts in anthropology will not change, Abhilasha. Probably you will have some of those specific ethnic groups of Kerala that is extra, which you may have to study, but otherwise everything is fine. In fact, my own guru has written some books for, I think, anthropology was added in 12th standard for Kerala, and my guru has written a couple of books for them. Okay, class timings are online, but they are there. 5:30 p.m. is our classes. Well, Jansi, that's a good question. I mean, your worst competition will be in your class. Your best friend is also your competitor. So you try to excel yourself. That should take care of everything. Give your best. It doesn't matter. As long as you are doing what's expected of you, don't compromise, because this exam does demand a lot of your time. And in fact, I should congratulate you for having chosen this path, or to having decided to go through this journey. Because if you have decided to appear for civil services, there's something already very different about you, because this is not for the faint hearted. And since you have already taken the plunge, I should congratulate you, and try to excel yourself. I'm sure nothing is unachievable. Yes, the very first few classes will be orientation, so don't worry about it. So I just told you, your name is Capture On. Anthropology, sociology, please look at the other faculties, lectures, videos. I mean, attend the webinars, talk to the interact with the faculty the way you're interacting with me. Go through the previous year's questions, look at the syllabus, pick up some online resource to read through, and see whether you have an aptitude. Okay. As far as anthropology is concerned, you're not going to miss any other subject. We have almost everything in our discipline. So take a call, take an informed guess, and that's about it. So thank you. I think that allotted time for me is over. I wish you all the best, whether you join me or not. Um, I wish you all the very best, whatever optional you may take. God bless you. And questions do get repeated, Deepthi. And there's a pattern. I normally give a list of important areas after the prelims is over every year. It's an indicative list. I'm not an oracle, but there is a pattern. And that's another good thing about anthropology. There's some element of pattern predictability, which we can make use of. A little help always is mm, welcome, right? So God bless you all. I wish you all the best and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Thank you so much.